I don't know if you can see that silver image in the background, but you're going to see it in this show. I wanted to do things a little differently this time. I wanted to be a little bit more natural, sitting here at the edit bay, and take you on a bit of a journey. Now, this journey, or this experience that I had, happened slightly before my late wife, Jilly, passed away. And it's a fragmented memory, which is interesting because I think we all have these. But what happened is that I had a very powerful dream. I'll be honest, I had this dream. It was so real. And you know how these dreams are. I mean, things are solid, you can smell everything. It's absolute complete recall. If not, maybe it was happening in the moment and I was physically not in my body. And if you've ever been near death or been in the other side, you will know that when you're there, you feel like you're here. Everything looks the way it does here, but it's not. It's the world between the two places, the two realms, or the other side. But going back, I do have very conscious memories of seeing that silver bus and two men that came to my door. They came to my door. My wife had left, my late wife, Jilly. She had gone to the Renaissance Fair where she worked. And they came to my door, and they were two construction workers. And I opened the door, and I was a little confused. It was early in the morning. I'm in my bathrobe, and they said to me, "Come on, Steve, you know what this is all about." And one of them pointed. And he pointed down around the corner from my view, and I kind of leaned out, and there was a silver-looking vehicle, cigar-shaped vehicle with little portholes, all metal, metallic, just sitting there like a parked car on the middle of the street in front of everybody. I wonder if other people saw it. I think they didn't. I don't know. It was just a really odd moment. What they did next was take me out of the house, and the next thing I remember was I came to inside the vehicle, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking around, and I can see the neighborhood descending through the windows. We were going up clearly. And then I saw this strange man, and he was very tall and very odd looking. He could pass for human, but he was really odd looking, tall character. I got up out of my seat. And when I looked around, I could see there were other people in this vehicle with me. I call it the silver bus. And they were out cold. Now, you've heard me talk about this before. Now, this is a conscious memory. And they were out cold, and I looked around, and I said, this feels like being inside of an airplane, an airliner. Almost as though it was designed to have that feeling. And so I got up, because I was conscious and I could walk around, and I got up and I went over to this guy, and he kind of looked down at me, and I said, this is amazing. If any of these people wake up, they're just going to think they're taking a plane trip somewhere. And he looked at me and he said, that's exactly it. It was incredible. Next thing I remember was leaving Earth and seeing the stars outside the window, and then descending over another world, coming up to and descending in through its atmosphere and lowering down into this beautiful, lush, forested area with all these strange structures, buildings that sort of blended with nature. And we descended down to what looked like a landing pad. Again, the fragmentation of these memories is that it led to the dream. And although I remember all that stuff, the dream, I was walking down the road in the same place. I'm walking down this road, and there's all these strange people. Most of them, well, they all were humanoid looking to me. And again, I remember taking a deep breath, and I knew I was in a real place, and it just wasn't Earth. And even at one point I said that I'm not on Earth. And as I did that, this strange looking being that looked like he had no skin, he looked transparent, he had like flesh, underflesh, muscles and things showing, walked by in a suit and a hat, and kind of brushed up against me and heard me, I guess, mentally he heard me say, "I'm not on Earth." And he turned around, stopped and looked at me, and I heard him think, "No, you're not." And then he walked on. Shortly after that, I just kind of looked around. I didn't know what to do with myself. There were other things that I experienced, like this strange man who was under a tree, and he was sitting under the tree, and he was kind of in a suit, and he had like a fedora on as well, but he was human, but his skin was kind of gray, and his hands were gray, and it was covered with this fine hair. And I looked at him, I stopped, and I said, "You're not from around here, are you?" And he looked up at me. I mean, it was just a silly thing to say, but that's what came to my mind. And he looked up to me, he had these gleaming black eyes, human-sized, maybe a little bit bigger. And he pointed like this. And he pointed up to the sky, and in the sky you could barely discern little stars. And he just pointed like that. The next thing I remember is walking over to where the landing pad was, and there were these two ladies standing there, and they were in flight uniforms, like type of like attendant uniforms, flight attendant uniforms, and they had these little wings, and the wings had like an amethyst jewel in the center, and the wings were turned down, and they were very beautiful. And I remember looking at both of them, and they smiled at me, and that was it. I don't remember what happened after that. And that was a whole experience, but I tell you, that place was real. I had been to it before, because after my father passed when I was 14, he died in a senseless car accident. And he came to me, and we sat on a park bench. When have you heard this before, right? We sat on a park bench, and it was the same place. It was what I call the park. And we talked. And in fact, the movie that I did is loosely based on that experience. I'll never forget it. He came to say goodbye. And I've been there other times to see people that I loved that had passed on. But one thing is for sure, there are also beings there who have not passed on, because they have learned, like we should learn, is that we're much more than our physical selves. We are spiritual beings. We are beings of spirit. We can exist and remain who we are in consciousness without these bodies. But we need to understand that we do exist in both these realms, both here in the physical on Earth, but we're also connected with this sort of cosmic web throughout all existences, throughout all dimensions and all universes, to a spiritual side of our nature, which exists in that realm that we call the other side, where the people who have died have gone. They're not dead. You're not dead when you're there. It continues. And I think the lesson from all this, at least is for me, it doesn't mean it's for you, is that nobody should be in a hurry in their life. No one should be stressed out. No one should be thinking they've got to grab all they can grab before they die, because when you're dead, that's the end of it. It is not the end of it. You continue. And imagine if this culture, if this species, if human beings understood that their consciousness continued, that they went to such a place and could go other places at will. I don't think we'd be fighting each other. I don't think we would be fighting over land and fighting over religion and fighting over material possessions, because we think if we don't grab it all now, then we'll never get to obtain it. There are much higher attainments, and that is moving to a higher frequency, one where we exist both in this realm of the physical and the non-physical, because that's the only way we'll take flight and fly the universe.